This talk was supposed to be about secure communication for whistleblowers, and I think I can go through this fairly quickly because it is basically a request for some attention on this topic. My name is Tarek. I work as Axel Springer Ideas Engineering, and we are working on prototypes and evaluating technologies. For example, technologies that are required to keep whistleblowers safe. Yeah, and what I saw yesterday in the news was that 1 month ago, the European Central Bank was introducing a new system for protecting whistleblowers. And this was something where I said, that's exactly what we were building. And that's why I said, okay, this is something I have to mention today because it's not something that is somewhere very far away. And the general question about whistleblowers is always, are the whistleblowers the good guys or the bad guys? And very famously, Snowden, we probably all know who Edward Snowden was. He's handled like a traitor, right, in the United States. And it's actually questionable if he is a traitor or a hero in terms of revealing information about the bad guys, right? But this is not a question that is easily answered, and I can't answer this one. But in terms of legal handling, the G20, they have a program for protecting whistleblowers. So at least we know not all whistleblowers are bad guys and they need to be protected. The question is, what do we have to protect whistleblowers from, right? Because usually we as journalists, we just have to keep our secrets, who our sources are, because this is enough, right? And the problem is, no, not really. If we take a look at what happened in the last years, more and more whistleblowers, they were caught, persecuted, not because the journalists were revealing their sources, but for example, in this case that you see here, the Justice Department just seized the phone records without the journalists knowing about that. And in some cases, the FBI is just investigating journalists for collaborating with sources and surveilling them. So the sources might be discovered without actually the journalist having a hand in there. And if we take a look at other cases where not the persecutors are actually revealing the sources, but hackers, for example, this happens even more often. So you have some whistleblowers talking about things that they are not supposed to talk about, and suddenly some groups are hacking their computers, hacking their phones, hacking all of their devices, and just gathering all the information, all the traces that are on there about everyone and anyone they were in contact with. Yeah, and this is often enough to trace back the source of some certain information. So the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is, do we have to protect the sources from ourselves? Yeah, because the moment they get in contact with us, they reveal themselves through the traces and the devices and the communication trail that they actually have. Yeah, and so the only way to stay safe is to stay secret and not reveal yourself. And this is bad because this is exactly what the people want who are threatening the whistleblowers. Yeah. So the only thing that we have we can do is avoid working with third parties. So no Google Mail, no Telecom, no Dropbox, no SharePoint, no OneDrive, no Facebook, and actually no internet, because the moment that you connect with to the internet, you reveal your IP address and you can be surveilled. Yeah? And the one answer that we found that is quite powerful to go into this right direction is an open source framework called SecureDrop. And SecureDrop is a system, an architecture, and an open source framework that is trying to answer exactly these questions. In the center of this framework is Tails, which is an operating system based on Debian Linux, which is exactly designed to avoid any kind of traces, to communicate completely through the onion ring. You might know this as a proxy network, so that all your communication paths are not easily traceable because it is directed, all requests are directed through these rings of this network of proxies. And this operating system has no persistent state. So if you have a flash drive with this Tails operating system on there, you can boot your computer, you can use it the moment you shut it down. There are no persistent traces. So next time you boot it up, it is like a, how do you say it, virgin state. It's exactly as it was when you first created it, even though you have the possibility to store files on a separate mount point. But this one is, of course, encrypted. Yeah? So everything that you specifically want to persist, it is encrypted. So this Tails operating system takes a lot of the complexity of this topic and helps you. And SecureDrop, they created a system all around this. And in the center of this is the so-called secure viewing station. So if you are a newspaper, you can use the secure viewing station to safely open up messages. And the special thing is it is physically secured and air-gapped. Yeah? And air-gapped is, if you take it literally, it is in a closed room without any connection to the outside world. This is the extreme case. The most important thing is this, that this secure viewing station has no network ports. So it is not connected to the internet, not connected to any other computer. So it is completely isolated, and ideally it is also protected from views. So it has walls around it. Nobody can actually watch you when you interact with this, and that's what basically means air-gapped. Yeah. And apart from that, you have somewhere in the office this application server, and this application server is the gateway that people can actually interact with the system. On the one hand, you have the journalist interface where the journalists log into, and the source interface, which is then directed to the internet where the sources can connect. For administration purposes, you have a monitoring server that observes this application server and notifies you if there's some activity on it. And the journalist, of course, has still his journalist workstation, but this is separated from the rest of the system. Yeah, and if we want to go quickly through this complete architecture, let me skip this one to save some time. You have the source who's using Tails OS, ideally, because with Tails OS, he does not leave traces locally. And if he does not have Tails OS, you can also just use the Tor browser or redirect your request through Tor. The most important thing is that at the moment that you you send data to the internet, it is always via Tor. And this one then connects to the source interface through a Tor address that is publicly available from us, from the newspaper. The administrators, of course, need to access the system as well. If we throw the admin area into this network diagram, then it is also isolated because the administrators, of course, need to be able to SSH onto the application server and the monitoring server. But apart from that, it is a separated system from the rest. The journalists, of course, they are also part of this. They need to work with the system, but the special thing is that their computer is not directly connected to the rest of the system. They can only interact through this journalist interface. It is a specific login where they can use their personal key to decrypt any messages that are dropped on the SecureDrop. SecureDrop. Yeah, and if we take a look at this air-gapped area, the only way to move files in or out of this air-gapped area is through the so-called export device. And this one is always encrypted. This is also generated by the Tails operating system. And this one is the only way to export files that are dropped on this computer to the secure way and move to the workstation. And this way, it is secured that even though you moved some information and files to the internet, you do not have traces, or it is very, very hard to trace them back through Tor. And even if you're able to trace them back, they are encrypted. and there's no direct connection between the workstation of the journalist and the source. Yeah, and this is basically the big picture of this infrastructure, which is from SecureDrop on their website itself. And the great thing about this is you do not have to actually construct everything and build everything by hand, but it is all available in this open source project. Yeah? So you have their images and installers to create this admin server, to create this application server, to create this encrypted USB drive that you can use to transport the files from one to the other. So everything is prepared. You have to, of course, make sure that you have enough hardware to set this up in separated areas. But this is not really magic, yeah. And so I would love to see in the Axel Springer family that we try to set this up somewhere, because it is already used everywhere on the world in different newspapers. This table, not so easy to read, is from Wikipedia with some examples of SecureDrop, but it is not complete, yeah, because I was searching for German newspapers using this. There's no German newspaper on this list, even though I know that the Süddeutsche Zeitung, for example, they have a SecureDrop implementation for whistleblowers to upload stuff. Yeah, and so there are people in Germany using this, and I think this is a great thing. It does not really cost as much as you might think to set this up, because it's just a couple of computers with a specific way of communicating. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is was the very, very quick way walkthrough to this presentation. I still have 1 minute for questions.